Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Ryan Smolar, and I'm with Placemaking US, which is a national placemaking organization organized under the Placemaking X global banner. We're so excited to be here today with our very first town showcase, which is an event that features the voices of several placemakers from a single community. So we can start to get the depth and breadth of the ways that placemaking is being embraced and utilized to create vibrant communities across the United States. I'm going to kick it off to our local member, Edwin, who's organized this incredible panel of people today to speak with you. And we'll be hearing from them and getting the chance to chime in a little bit and celebrate their work and ask any questions and learn and share from the incredible achievements that have been kicked off here in Maryland. So, Edwin, go ahead and introduce us to your community. We're so excited. Thank you.
All right, everyone. My name is Edwin Linderkamp. Just a quick introduction about myself. I'm the social media coordinator at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and also a member of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee at the City of Salisbury, and a member of Placemaking US. So first of all, thank you everyone for being here. Thank you for the presenters being here. I really want to thank especially you, Brian, for making this happen, for us to showcase Salisbury, Maryland's placemaking activities and all the potential that the city has to offer. I also want to thank, I believe he's here, Jake Day, for being here. He's the former mayor that's done great things for the city so far. And he is the current Maryland Secretary for Housing and Community Development. So I would now going to share my presentation. Okay. Can everyone see this?
Looks good.
Okay, I'll just start it. Okay. All right, so today we're going to hear about Salisbury, Maryland. It's located on the Delmarva Peninsula between the Chesapeake Bay on the west and the Atlantic Ocean near Ocean City on the east. So Salisbury is known as the capital of the Eastern Shore on the eastern shore of Maryland and is the largest city of the region. It was founded in 1732 and it's the county seat for Wicomico. It's an urban center with an urban population. At the same time, it's also quite country, nestled within a rural scenic region as well. So now let's take a look at some demographics of this. So these are from 2021. Since 2010, the city has had a 13% growth in population with a 0.4% annual population growth. Now the city has roughly 33,000 residents. It's a minority-majority city with 53% of the city being minority or mixed race. It has a median age of 30 years, a $48.3 thousand median household income, and a fairly high poverty rate of 25%. Let's take a look at the economy. So a unique thing about Salisbury is it's located in the fastest growing region in Maryland. There are large economic anchors. The top 3 employers are the Peninsula Regional Health Center Hospital, known today as Tidal Health, Salisbury University, which has a student population of about 7,030 students, and Purdue Farms, which is a large agricultural and meat producer. As you see here on the left in the photo, this is the revitalized Main Street and downtown. So there are charming and historic areas like this in the city and throughout it. There's been a development of incentive programs for increasing housing stock, which is great from a planning perspective, while there is a lack of affordable housing, which definitely affects especially the 25% of the population living in poverty. So just some basic facts about the infrastructure are that Salisbury is located on the crossroads of two main city highways. These are US 13 running north and south, and US 50 running east and west throughout the city. Now, this is great for trucks and cars and other vehicles to get in and out of the city quickly, though for bicyclists, pedestrians, as well as the downtown, which is located near these city highways, it's not so great. The downtown is walkable, and there are walkable residential neighborhoods. I live in one myself, though because of the city highways, other avenues and roads, it's not always the best walkability. Same as the public waterfront, there are miles of access to the waterfront, though there's limited pedestrianization. There are high quality parks, though some of the people living in certain neighborhoods, there are disparities for them to access some of the parks and recreation facilities. And some further issues are that there's an older housing stock, an aging public infrastructure, there are flooding issues, traffic congestion and safety concerns. Some areas are non-compliant with ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and there are unconnected and unprotected bicycle networks, which is something that Will White is going to speak about next in his presentation on Vision Zero. All right, thanks. Oops, exit. Stop. Okay.
All right. So Will's up next.
Yep, and we're coming up. Can everybody see the screen here?
Yeah, it's rocking.
Okay. And that was a yes. Okay. So I'm Will White, the transportation specialist for transportation manager for the city of Salisbury. Do a quick overview of Vision Zero and kind of talk about some of the placemaking we've done. I guess first, what is Vision Zero? I'm sure I'm talking to the choir for most of this group, but just in case, it's a strategy to limit traffic fatalities. It is an international movement. It has grown exponentially in the US. Salisbury was not the first. We were one of the first small cities to adopt it. But by no means were we first, or did we invent it. Salisbury's Vision Zero program is scheduled to end traffic fatalities by January 1st, 2030. That was a 10-year deadline from the time that we initiated it. I won't go through this slide entirely, but you'll see kind of a brief timeline. We are now on our third full year in Vision Zero. So up in the top left there, you've got the original Vision Zero action plan, and then the 3 annual reports that came after. So we do update council on our progress and where we have not met timelines every year prior to July 1. Since the initiation of the program, we have been extremely successful using low-cost safety countermeasures. Again, I'm not going to sit here and go through every statistic, but these slides will be included for everyone who's here. Long story short, the city was averaging about 2 traffic fatalities on city streets. There are larger state highways that also cut through the city, like Edwin referenced. But we were averaging 2 fatalities a year, plus dozens of serious injuries for pedestrians and cyclists annually. Since Vision Zero, that somewhere in between that first and second year, we have had 0 fatalities because we hit our high crash locations first and stuck to it and kept going. Overall crashes are down, serious injury crashes are also down. While we were one of the first small cities in the country, and definitely the first small city in Maryland, like we weren't first, that actually goes to Montgomery County, that adopted it before us, but we were still on the edge of the movement. Since then, both Maryland has adopted Vision Zero, as has the federal government. They just call it Safe Systems. Maryland calls theirs 0 deaths, but they are essentially Vision Zero. To figure out where we were going to do our improvements, like we looked at the high injury corridors, focusing on where there were a serious number or serious concentration of serious and fatal collisions, as well as bike and pedestrian collisions. That's what shows up as streets there colored in on the left, and the intersections are called out on the right. We kind of realized that, hey, fatal crashes were occurring on just 2% of our streets. So we were able to focus on those pretty quickly, as well as 50% of serious injuries were occurring on like less than 7% of our streets. And they all kind of look how you would think they would. They're high-speed urban arterials that had no place in a downtown. And it's similar statistics for concentrations of ped and bike crashes. So of all those places that were initially identified, we've done improvements to all of them in the last 3 years, which has been a significant factor in the safety increases. The map there on the left, one thing I will highlight about that, so you'll see where all those colored lines come through. You'll notice they go through some grayed out blocks. Those blocks are low to moderate income neighborhoods. Those are our community development block grant target areas. So you'll see that they disproportionately affect or block off our low to moderate and minority majority neighborhoods. These were the 5 goals that were developed as part of the plan. Again, I'll leave them up here for people to read through on their own, but every action we've taken fit into one of these 5 buckets. So being able to organize that as such has led us to be able to go to the public and justify everything we've done, as well as seek funding. Sometimes our improvements are as simple as this. They are just traffic calming, speed humps being put in, amongst other things, just to slow people down on residential streets. This is actually our most requested technical service. We get requests for speed humps daily. We actually can't put them all in because we just can't evaluate them all. So we do have to prioritize, but extremely effective for very low cost. Then we have bigger projects like this one. Carroll Street is funded for construction. This is actually one of the city's main arterials between downtown. Downtown would be to the right of this image, and Tidal Health Hospital would be to the left. This is currently, or was, a 5-lane arterial that only carried about 10,000 cars a day, something easily handled by 2 lanes. This has been reduced to 2 with a couple turn lanes through striping in the last couple years. This is the project as it will look. In about a year to a year and a half, we were awarded a Safe Streets for All grant in the inaugural round to build this amongst other projects. So this is not far away. Other project successes are just a number of grant funded projects that we've been able to knock out and improve for the community. On the left there, you'll see the Lake Street and Isabella Bikeways, which is one of those low to moderate income, primarily African-American neighborhoods on our west side. On the right there is the cycle track that was installed next to the university on College Avenue. This is one of our larger ones. So under construction right now is actually a quite large placemaking as well as a safety project. Unity Square, as of 2 days ago when I took the picture, under construction. Part of that is the traffic calming and raised speed table you see there. So that is a street that goes through there that will be able to be closed off for events, but is open the rest of the time. That was right there to the left as an intersection that was the site of a couple fatals. So we removed a signal that was there that was actually contributing to it, did all the traffic calming, and are now building the square. And then, coming April 2024, when it opens, it's going to look like that. So it's probably about 3 to 4 weeks away from completion, and then we'll have a brand new public open space in the middle of downtown that doesn't exist currently. And if anybody ever needs to get a hold of me, I put up my contact info as well as a link to our Vision Zero website. And with that, I will pass it off to the next person.
Okay, I believe that will be me. I'm going to try to share my screen. All right, can I get a thumbs up if my presentation is visible? Thank you, Ryan. All right. Good morning, everybody. First of all, it's an honor to be here at Placemaking Through Sustainability. My name is Matthias Pieplak. I'm a Salisbury resident, general contractor by trade, and I've been a Green Team member since 2020. The Green Team is actually officially known as the Salisbury Sustainability Advisory Committee. A little bit of a mouthful. And now I want to show you who we are and what we do. Okay, so here are some pictures of our team members. On the far left, you see Alyssa Hastings. She's the former sustainability specialist for the City of Salisbury. And next to her, Elise, she's our chair. Okay, so the Green Team is a completely, whoops. Green Team is a completely volunteer-based committee that serves to advise the mayor of Salisbury and the city administration on sustainability initiatives, policies, and also practices. Our team draws on the expertise of our local community, and we have a wide diversity of members. For example, our team members work in a variety of industries, where about half are active in environmentally engaged organizations. The rest work in education or more traditional blue and white collar jobs. For us, we think this is a great strength because this provides a broad range of knowledge, valid opinions, and interests. And each member brings a strong set of resources and different community connections to the table. In addition to our official members, we also have a range of volunteers out of the community. They typically participate in some of our subcommittees, other initiatives, or they just come to our monthly meetings and share what they hear or experience in the community, which always keeps us up to speed. Okay. Now I'd like to go over to show you one of the great things that we achieved back in 2023. So this is a picture of the City Council chamber in early 2023 with most of our committee members. In the background, also the City Council themselves and some other partners that helped us pass the Shop Green SBY initiative. So Shop Green SBY is essentially a ban on the single-use plastic bags to be used at sales counters in stores. This policy had been in the making since 2021 in collaboration with Salisbury University. So essentially, through some research, we learned that litter was one of the #1 reasons or sustainability-related issues that people in the community wanted to see addressed. And at the same time, the Green Team was leading monthly litter cleanups, and we were finding masses of trash and among it also single-use bags. So consequently, we started researching what a ban could look like. And ultimately, we partnered up with the Lower Eastern Shore Sierra Club to draft a bill that was then adapted and introduced by our former mayor, Jake Day, in early 2023. Here on the next slide, you see a couple of our volunteers handing out reusable shopping bags. So an essential part of the Shop Green SBY initiative was to be equitable and to include planning a widely visible public outreach and acceptance campaign. Through plenty of announcements in traditional media, social media, but also door knocking and putting posters in storefronts as early as 6 months ahead of the passing of the bill and it going into effect. We were able to educate the community and promote the benefits of the new policy. So these reusable bags, reusable shopping bags, they were handed out usually in front of grocery stores across the city. And as an ongoing effort, we keep collecting feedback from store owners regarding their experience and their shoppers' feedback. But also we talk to volunteers who are monitoring the amount of trash found along roads and in public spaces and in the waterways. Okay, now let me briefly touch on some of this year's ongoing committee efforts. One of them was sustainable yards. So this one is spearheaded by the Meadows Subcommittee, a group that collaborates with city community centers to teach grown-ups and children about how to grow food and plants in general, just to get them a little bit more in touch with nature. Importantly, they also promote existing city programs such as permits for plant pollinator gardens, for butterflies and bees and other pollinators, and native plants, trees and flowers that support the habitat. And actually, Martin is going to share a little bit more about our community gardens later on. Another subcommittee that has formed and is active this year is active transportation. They actually work very closely with BPAC, which we had already heard mentioned, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, which is also chartered by the City of Salisbury. And they focus on alternative ways to get to work and around town. So we have a pretty good sidewalk network, but there's always room for improvement. And the same is true for our bike lanes. So these committees actually work on policy suggestions and infrastructure plans alongside with the Department of Infrastructure and Development, DID, here in Salisbury. And they are also currently working on a proclamation suggesting to make May a bicycle month and to also have an official bike to work day where city employees and also local businesses are encouraged to find alternative ways to the car to get their employees to work, at least during the summer months when the weather is good. Okay, so lastly, I want to summarize all of the subcommittee efforts for the current year under the Education and Strategic Community Engagement Committee. Among the 5 active subcommittees, all activities follow some common goals. So as an initial step, it is our priority to connect people and organizations and to create collaboration. Have the potential to really make an impact and engage the community. So creating awareness is another very important step. And can community to develop an awareness about what it means, what actions in our lifestyle have on the environment and on the community. And ultimately, we want paid. So in the picture here, for example, you see a youth group drawing signs at one of our community gardens. And those growing leaders in our community, that take ownership for what our city looks like now and also in the future, and to make a positive impact. And lastly, we have a whole bunch of outreach events this year on social media, and others are in person. And with April coming up and being this year's Earth Month, and the city having dedicated their 3rd Friday on April 19th under the topic of sustainability, the Green Team is actually hosting a couple of tables along with partner organizations where we are hoping to, hand out information, and we also have some games to reach hundreds of community members and give them access and an introduction if they have never heard about it, about everything environmental and sustainability related. Okay, that sums it up. I believe the next speaker is going to be Nadine, and she'll be able to tell you a lot more about the city's events. Thank you so much.
Before we jump over to Nadine, there were some questions in the chat from CJ, who runs the Congress Square in Portland, Maine, about the Unity Square project. And he was curious, I don't know if Will is still here, but about the programming and management aspect of the property.
I can
still here.
maybe help speak to that too. Okay.
No, I'm still here. I just didn't hear you broke up. I didn't hear the whole question.
Oh, sorry. Well, someone was asking about the programming and management of the site, and maybe that's what Nadine's role is, but.
Nadine, do you want to take that? You want me to?
Um, you can go ahead and take it, but
Okay.
we'll be using it for event space too, and I'm excited about that.
So yeah, it is it's a square at all times, right? So it's got a street that goes through it that can be shut down for larger events. It does have a flex lawn in the middle, which is that where, obviously the green space in the middle that can be used for anything. That's also where the stormwater system is. So it's synthetic turf, it all drains. So to meet the Maryland stormwater requirements. But it's got a children's play area, a splash pad, a more quiet, like sitting discussion space, just like a hangout space in one corner. The street piece and the other side of the street from that are thicker concrete pads so they can handle more weight. They're designed to take like larger stages and food trucks and things like that. So it's a very flexible space. It was always intended to be that way. In fact, when we handed it to the design team, which was the Design Collective out of Baltimore, that was their guidance was, hey, we want this to be the city's living room, not like a traditional formal square. And so they ran with it. And that's what we got. There's currently one tree on the site, like the mature tree that was already there. Everything else was just an open parking lot previously. This parking lot's gone, and now it's got like 18 different trees as of yesterday. So it'll be a much more inviting, natural space when it's all said and done.
Awesome. All right. Well, sorry to steal your thunder, Nadine. You're up next.
No problem. I'm like, we have so much stuff programmed to go there. We can't wait to put it there. So let me share my screen first before I get too excited. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Good. Okay. I am Nadine Brittingham. I'm the event coordinator and the public art liaison for the City of Salisbury. And I found myself asking, like, what am I in this situation? And I think I am the result of active placemaking in Salisbury, Maryland. I found myself questioning when Edmund reached out, how did I get here? Why am I being asked? I'm so new to this position. And this town, how did I get to Salisbury? It's my home. I'd been placemaking my whole life and I didn't even know it. And I had to learn a lot, and I'm really excited to share my story with you guys. Let's go ahead and do some clicking. I moved here in 2012 as a recent art school graduate from Wilmington, Delaware, always an Eastern Shore local, and I immediately, when I moved to Salisbury, started looking for my local skate and my local art community. In 2013, through roller derby and a pottery studio, I found Third Friday as a vendor and as a community to be a part of. Third Friday is a monthly arts and entertainment event that is hosted downtown. It's free, it's small scale, it has ease of access for those new to marketplaces and convenience of attendance. That was really a selling point for me, being new into these kind of things and new into town. Everyone was really great, and you really had a sense of community while you were there. I enjoyed it as an artist and a vendor and an attendee for many, many years. And then in 2023, I attended a public art meeting as a Salisbury young professional and found a love for public art here downtown. I joined the Arts and Entertainment District Committee working with the downtown public arts, and then became aware that the current director, Jamie Heater, was taking a new career path and was looking for a new career path myself. And so I ended up here on the events team helping with Third Friday, the very first thing I found in Salisbury. So ironic. The desire for more events here in Salisbury was so great that it led to the city forming the Department of the Arts, Business, and Culture, who agreed to facilitate the arts and entertainment events, and as well as take on the Maryland Main Street designation and the arts and entertainment designation. I've been with the Arts, Business, and Culture Department for about 9 to 10 months and just newly joined as the city liaison for public arts, and I hope to do it some justice. Here you can see our first official public art meeting to release the public art master plan, and I'll speak to that a little later on as well. This is our team that we had formed. This is just the event side of things. We also have the zoo and the downtown ambassadors and a lot of hospitality type things that we facilitate. The team started with just 2 employees and then grew to a team of 7 supporting the event staff. We host things like Third Friday, the concert series, the Maryland Folk Festival, Hops on the River, formerly Riverfest, Holiday Lights, the New Year's Eve Ball Drop, and many, many, many community events. Here you can see Third Friday, and there was some people doing some bags printing. That was to help the shopping initiative. Here we have Friday Night Live, a concert series previously held at the amphitheater, very well attended, great music, great artists, and we try to, get everyone out there to have a great time. Maryland Folk Festival is a 3-day festival promoting culture and the arts. Always really well attended. You can even see some people here with rain jackets on last year. They'll come out. It's a great time. Hops on the River, our craft beer festival coming up on April 13th. That will be at Unity Square. It'll be a wonderful time outside with unlimited beer sampling and food, music, games. We have a giant recycling sculpture coming. It's going to be great. Riverfest was to encourage our outdoor facilities, our new parks, and again, just another reason for the community to come out. Holiday Lights was new this past year. It's our holiday tree lighting event, but we bumped it up a little bit, had little toy trains running around with kids can ride on them, the usual gingerbread decorating, Santa, Grinch, and lots of performers. And New Year's Eve Ball Drop has been around for a while and very beloved. We had illumination bags, public trivia that was great, a really great crowd, and of course our giant ball that we dropped from a crane with the fire department. And we also support a lot of community events. They're wonderful. These are all people who just want something really great to happen, and we just help them get to that. So I wanted to cover the event's history because I don't think any of this would be possible without where we've come from. Like I said, I'm very new to the team and I want to drive things forward, but to understand that, I think it's great to know where we came from. This would not have been possible without the dedicated work of the Arts and Entertainment District and those who came before me. For the purpose of this discussion, I wanted to just touch on some of the history of the people who led the way in placemaking for me in Salisbury and the revitalization of the downtown from about the early 2000s until now. So there was a master plan started in 2002 under an organization called Urban Salisbury. The plan outlined a high-rise SU dormitory and a government building near to the library, which was widely proclaimed that'll never happen. And I was so pleased to read this and be like, it happened. We now have the dormitory to support our residential needs and a government office building near to the library, as well as Unity Square. So it's great to see we've accomplished that. Then in 2007, the Arts and Entertainment District, established by Lee Whaley and Connie Strutt. They were people just hungry for something positive and happy and fun. And then in 2009, there was a pivotal turning point. So here was Urban Salisbury, and you can see our Ross building here, as well as our headquarters building here. And then here you can see Lee Whaley and Connie Strutt. This was the old plaza. It's now been revitalized as well, but it's a beautiful plaza, and these women noticed that there wasn't enough going on downtown. We had this beautiful plaza, it wasn't being traversed, and they just wanted to create something great down here, so they came up with the Arts and Entertainment District. So in 2009, there was a pivotal turning point with the event Third Friday debuted, the monthly outdoor arts and entertainment event from April to November. It had things like really fun themes every year. These are this year's themes. Things occur like people coming out in costumes, activities for folks, lots and lots of vendors and handmade goods. Nonprofits came out and the businesses participate. And it's a really great time for everyone just to get outside, especially after winter. This started on the plaza with only 50 to 60 people. They had a really dedicated volunteer, Jamie Heater, who attended the very first event and immediately decided to volunteer from then on. So in 2015, the district had an expansion application to grow the downtown. They added the full downtown where it was previously just the plaza, I believe. And anyone can correct me on this because I'm still learning the history too, but I'm really excited about it. Third Friday started off with 50 to 60 people. It grew to be over 1,500 people, even more events formed. There was people talking. In 2016, the city partnered with the Arts and Entertainment District, and Mayor Jake Day announced dedicated volunteer Jamie Heater as a paid executive director to create and maintain events in the downtown activities. The footprint has now grown to include the plaza, additional streets, a new garden space, park, and serves 1,000 to 2,500 participants per event. It's very beloved here in Salisbury, and we're very excited about that. In 2013, they had the first New Year's Eve annual ball drop to become the final event of the year. And other events like the concert series Hops on the River, Poetry Corner, and many more were born, and we're continuously creating more events and supporting more community as a marketing tool for economic growth for businesses. The downtown businesses were once unoccupied. And now we're very proud to say there are 295 businesses downtown, and 100 of them are arts, community organization, recreation, retail, or beauty to help bring people to our beautiful downtown to have this place that we want to make for them. And the vendors and artisans that we have gone on to be small business owners like Blackwater Apothecary, who has even started our downtown Business Alliance to promote our downtown businesses. And the Salisbury Arts and Entertainment District has since reformed to be the Salisbury Arts Alliance, who will continue to preserve placemaking and working with the local arts and community so that we can continue to just facilitate this downtown into a great place to be. Which brings us to public art. The proliferation of public art was a conjunction with the Arts and Entertainment District and Susan Holt, our next speaker, and one of my favorite public art people in the area. They were responsible for just livening up the downtown, thinking of things like banners and landscaping and trying to lifen this space that they saw had potential. Their efforts encouraged various galleries and artists to come downtown as a place to be creative and a place to feel welcome. This led to the 2016 master plan, public art having included in it. At this time, we currently have over 32 unique public art pieces, murals, sculptures, and power boxes, to which we try to feature them every Monday on Mural Monday now, which is a great initiative. And this is all the direct result of placemaking and the arts and entertainment seeing the need for this and driving towards it, and then our public responding to this. We have a majority minority population here, and the community involvement is a really important way to reflect history and to drive the need for more public art, and to build to the 2023 Public Art Master Plan, a collaborative effort between the City of Salisbury's newly formed ABCD department, the Arts, Business, and Culture, and the former Arts and Entertainment District. And it was led by Public Art Master Planner Todd Bressy, who gave us an entire plan, lovely laid out for us to follow to continue for our dream to make more public art here. And currently, we are in 2024, the Public Art Master Plan went live and is in use for the Salisbury Prize to be awarded this spring, decided by city technical staff, as well as a public committee of diverse artists, performers, sculptors, architects, and community leaders will lead and then release for public voting for a grand prize of $15,000 to be awarded annually to a new project at a new location each year. So with the events team and my portion and the history behind it, really my takeaway was like, wow, just total passion drew the path for downtown revitalization. These people who came in and saw something and really wanted to develop it and to make this placemaking for us these past like 10 and 15, 20, even more years before I can speak to it. And years and years of devoted hard work by the Salisbury Arts and Entertainment District and all of its dedicated community members and volunteers, like created this place of Salisbury for people like me to enjoy. And this was a really lovely thing to learn for myself and to see has happened in Salisbury actively and continues to happen and grow. And with that, I'd love to pass this to Susan Holt to speak more to the public art and all the things that we've grown here since she's been so lovely. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Nadine. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Susan Holt. I'm an installation artist, recently retired from the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, where I was gallery director. And my presentation will be on public art in Salisbury. Let's see. I think you're going to have to load it, Ryan. It doesn't seem to be coming up. Can you do that for me, please?
Sure thing.
Okay. I knew I'd have a problem. I practiced many times.
All right, it's coming up.
All right, excellent. Okay, can you control it? So go to the next slide. When I moved here 25 years ago, I couldn't understand why downtown was so dead. It certainly seemed nice enough. I'd lived for many years in a major European city, and this just didn't make sense. This photo shows the downtown plaza around that time. The block of Main Street had been converted to a pedestrian area, but there were hardly ever many pedestrians. So I joined revitalization efforts and have been volunteering on committees ever since. Next slide. I soon learned that downtown didn't used to be like this. It had been a happening, vibrant place, often crowded. There were large department stores, businesses, movie theaters, restaurants, cafes, bookstores, record stores, and hotels with ballrooms. For young people in the 50s and 60s, it was the place to meet and hang out. In reality, there were two downtowns, as Salisbury was heavily segregated. The Black downtown was on the other side of the river, often prone to flooding, but equally vibrant with nightclubs, businesses, a movie theater where you could sit anywhere you wanted, and a hotel. It was part of the Chitlin Circuit, a network all across the country where prominent African-American musicians and entertainers performed. Next slide. The first public art project I worked on consisted of a series of large steel sculptures. At the time, local politics was contentious. And so we devised a process that involved many volunteer stakeholders and practically no public funds. The designs were created by Salisbury University students. Technical renderings were done by local architects. Local manufacturing industries cut the designs. High school students in a vocational program did the welding, and private donors sponsored each sculpture to cover remaining costs. All the city had to do was installation. It was a great success. After 10 sculptures in 10 years, some wanted more of the same, but I felt we could expand. Next slide. Memories of Downtown was my Master of Fine Arts thesis project. I sought out older people to interview who had grown up here, intentionally avoiding people of power and wealth. As I listened to more African Americans, I learned about the two downtowns. At the end of one interview, a woman shared a memory of downtown that had terrified her as a young nursing student. She had witnessed the lynching in 1931 on the lawn in front of the courthouse. She bravely allowed me to include that in my video. I wrote phrases from the memories on strips of brightly colored cloth and wove them into a large fabric sculpture. I got a grant and permission to occupy a then vacant building on the plaza and created a site-specific interactive installation open to the public. In its heyday, the Powell Building had been a bustling department store. Now it's a museum and luxury apartments. Next slide. The bridge project was a public art project I designed based on the negative effects on predominantly African American neighborhoods from the construction of two highways through town. The Georgetown and Cuba neighborhoods developed organically on either side of Church Street, where there were churches, a school, and dozens of homes and businesses. It was not strictly segregated and had a rich history. As US Route 50 was built from the east to the west coast, the federal government left it up to local politicians to decide exactly where the roads would be placed. Like many towns and cities at the time, they took this as an opportunity to get rid of so-called blight. The way the highways cut through the area today, it is very hard to believe that at one time, you could easily walk from downtown or the Newton neighborhood or a Camden residential neighborhood across this area to catch a train at the train station and go to New York or Philadelphia. Next slide, please. The project envisioned images on both sides of the underpass of the railroad bridge where Route 50 and 13 cross. This is the map that I recolored. On one side would show the brightly colored map, and on the other, with the highway superimposed in gray, and on the other, the prominent buildings and people from the neighborhoods. Overhead on the fencing on the railroad bridge, the word home would be painted on the fence in reflective silver paint. Next slide. These are renderings of the project. Unfortunately, it could not go forward. The Highway Administration has determined that images on bridges are far too distracting for drivers. So this project was never done. Next slide. Currently, the underpass is frequently decorated with graffiti, which the city diligently removes. The good news is that near this site, another artist created a new mural commemorating many important historical figures from the neighborhoods, with the theme of honoring the past and moving forward with joy. Next slide. I never did anything alone. Over the years, working with great collaborators, we've brought numerous public art projects to fruition. Painted electrical boxes, murals, and sculptures. I'd like to especially acknowledge Jamie Heater, who ran the Salisbury Arts and Entertainment District for years. Thanks to her, we recently received a grant from the Maryland State Arts Council and now have a public art master plan. This detailed and thorough document will guide us forward. And with the creation of the ABCD department and full support from the city, we have a public art committee, of which I am chair, and funding. I'm excited to announce that soon we will unveil the runners-up of the first annual Salisbury Prize, a public art competition, and launch a voting platform so the public can choose the winning design. Public art enlivens spaces, enriches communities, and creates placemaking pride. Thank you.
Awesome. Martin, I think you're up next. Is that right?
I am. Mine, just a minute. I don't know what's going on. Why it's not. There we go. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. There we go. So what I've done, I have been a pastor here in the area since 1999. Didn't realize that Susan and I came to the area about the same time. So I've been here 25 years. Grew up an hour west of here in a farming community. Grew up on a 3,000-acre farm. And as a pastor, I believe that the purpose of the church is to be agents of God's love and blessing in the community, no strings attached. And to that end, I decided that I wanted to get the church out of the building and engaged in the community. And the best way I could figure out how to do that was to create a community garden and use the skills that I have and I love to impact our neighborhood. About that same time that I was working at this idea and had a location in mind, I attended a meeting that our former mayor, Jake Day, then city council president, had in a pizzeria downtown on the plaza to talk about community gardens. And in that meeting, he talked about the possibility of locating them on vacant city lots. And from that moment, I was sold. I knew exactly the lot that I wanted us to be on. It was down the street from the church that I pastor, right behind St. Francis Catholic School and Church. It is indeed a city-owned lot, and we went through the hoops to lease it for $1 a year. This is what it looked like when we found it. It was littered with dog poop and trash. And this is what it looked like after we built a community garden, now in its 10th growing season. We transformed that vacant city lot into a destination for the neighbors of the neighborhood. And the neighbors in the neighborhood around it are of various economic situations and often don't have access to free, healthy, organically grown vegetables, which are very expensive. And so our desire was to provide a place where we could give free, organically healthy grown vegetables away to the neighborhood. So we initially put in 16 beds. And then in the second season, we decided to put in 4 more for a total of 20. It happened as I hoped it would happen. Right next door to the garden was a playground, and my interest was in engaging the children of the neighborhood who were having issues with boredom, and boredom creates acting out and creates situations where they get into trouble. And so I wanted to engage them. And the very first night we were there, the kids that were playing on the playground came over and they had 2 questions. What are you doing? And can we help? We told them what we were doing and invited them to jump in and help us. This is a tale of many partnerships between 3 churches in addition to my own. partnership between, you see in the picture, former Mayor Jake Day, City Council President Laura Mitchell, and City Council Vice President Jack Heath, who then was our mayor most recent. And a whole bunch of kids and people from the community gathering to shovel by hand 6 dump truck loads of soil. I had an offer to put those in our beds by machine, and I said, no way. If we don't have a sweat equity thing going on, we won't have ownership in this garden, and it'll be my garden or our garden, and it won't be the community's garden. And so we hand shoveled those 6 dump truck loads over a period of a couple of weeks, and created a situation where disconnected neighbors soon became connected. You can see the children of the neighborhood eagerly engaged in the planting and growing process. My hope was to teach them that vegetables and food comes from places other than Acme or Walmart or Food Line or whatever grocery store chain you have in your communities, and to teach them that they could grow their own food, and this provided them a place to do that. In the process, they really got engaged, and almost any time that I would drive my truck and park it on the sidewalk or side street by the sidewalk that comes through the playground into the garden, they would come running up and say, "Hey, what are we doing tonight, Pastor Martin? Let us help." And so I engaged that, recognizing that they might not see the task through, that they might get bored with doing what we were doing, but they would do it for however long they wanted to. And so here they are one night. This was just an organic happening. It was not a planned activity. I showed up at the garden to do some shoveling, and they came and jumped in and are helping, as you can see. We have a local elementary school that my church has been faith-based partners with for the last 17 years, the Pinehurst Elementary School in the neighborhood. All of the kids that go to that, or some of the kids that go to that elementary school live in proximity to the garden. And so one day we did a 5th grade class field trip, 10 blocks from the school, brought them down to the garden where they plant it, they harvest it, and they just enjoyed making things with a chef that we harvested in the garden. We took it back to the school cafeteria and made something for them to eat. For years, they said, best field trip ever. And we spent less than $100 and took them down for an hour to work in the garden and engage. Children, I found that if children grow carrots, they'll eat carrots. And they absolutely love trying fresh vegetables from the garden, even vegetables that they haven't eaten before. Here we are tasting lettuce that we just picked. The garden has become a destination for Pinehurst Elementary School, for the kids in the neighborhood to come and engage in the process of growing vegetables and learning about various things. There we are harvesting green beans, and that particular day we picked 21 bags of green beans that we gave tickets to the 5th grade class. I had 100 students in the 5th grade class. We gave them away like we drew tickets and gave away the bags. It was enough to feed 5 to 6 in a family, and you would have thought they were getting their name called on The Price is Right when they came down to get the bag of green beans. It was just a beautiful experience. The elementary school is a Title I school and often does a reading and math night every year. And so we have, for the last 6 years, hosted that reading and math night in the Camden Garden, where 300 to 400 students and families come, utilize the playground, the garden. There's various activities, and then they provide a meal in the playground as well. One of the things that I wanted to do was to engage children in a variety of ways, and not just through growing vegetables, but also through books. So we asked for permission to put a little free library in. The city council and mayor said no, not Mayor Jake Day. It was not him, it was his predecessor. Said it would become a drug drop-off place. And we did it anyway. We found a Boy Scout who wanted an Eagle Scout rank, and he created the little library, and we put it in. And fun fact is, when we did the second garden, which was the Boundless Garden, we've already seen pictures of it signed in Matthias's presentation. City Council said, we want you to put a little free library in the second garden. So, there it is. And we find in the community garden that it does a number of things. I did a TEDx talk in 2016, and my thesis was, if you want to revitalize a neighborhood, you can do that by changing the composition of that neighborhood's vacant lots. And when we did that, when we changed the vacant lot in that community, in that neighborhood, to a community garden, we created a place where disconnected neighbors would come and get engaged and get connected with each other, as you see in this picture. Also have some public art that we installed. And then we also created a situation where bored children would become engaged in something positive and meaningful. And it really indeed did change the flavor of this neighborhood. We have a university in town, and here are some university students that regularly come. We're on the list of the Honors College as a part of Salisbury University. They send students to do projects in the garden to learn about the community. And this was a group of college students that came to work one day. One of the things we discovered in this process was that these bored kids were acting out and getting in trouble. And so we wanted to engage that. So we began what we called summer lunch at the community garden. And we brought the local school system in, and they provided the lunch, and we provided adults and activities, and sometimes had 45, 50 kids that were engaged in activities and positive mentoring relationships for 5 days a week throughout the entire summer. We also hired an art teacher and provided art supplies to engage in that process. We invited them to come into the garden and learn how to make vegetables in the garden into food that they could eat. They're making some prosciutto there and enjoying that process. Another interesting piece to this story is that so you have the garden, and then the playground, and then a street, and then this house was sitting vacant, boarded up for about 11 years, I'm told. And this is Mayor Jake Day standing in the green sweater. And at that time, the city was talking about doing curfews for children because teenagers were acting out and getting into trouble. And there were a bunch of us who felt like curfews were a wrong way to go and that we needed to do something different. And it was Jake who had the idea that we put some community centers in neighborhoods of need where some of the things were happening with the teens. And so I convinced him to buy this house, which was foreclosed on. They bought it for $38,000 at foreclosure, and then they invested major dollars into remodeling it. And it stands today in this beautiful situation and is an active community center for the children and the adults of our community. After school programs, summertime activities. You see the nod they gave to the garden on the sign, a place to grow. I asked Jake last week because I was curious. I had never asked if they would have considered purchasing this building had the garden not been in the neighborhood and not been as successful as it was. And he said, absolutely not, that there would have been no consideration for this at all. It lacks some things. It doesn't have a gymnasium. It's just a residential house, 3,780 square feet, beautiful house. But it is being used, and it is being used hard by the children of the neighborhood. And the cool thing is, this year, a longtime dream of mine, they came to me at the community center, and they want to take over a garden bed for their own to use as a part of their programming and to teach the children. And so this spring that will happen. I've already ordered the seeds that they want, and they're making plans to engage their students in gardening and gardening activities. All of that we call growing more than veggies. The garden is the platform, but there's so much more that goes on, the growing more than veggies. And it has inspired community art. I love the interconnectedness of all of these presentations. This is a mural that was painted inside of a cafe downtown by an artist who was a part of one of the churches that was a part of the founding of the Camden Community Garden. And I just love this so much. I had to take a picture, and I'm going to print it on a canvas because the cafe that had it in it is now has moved, and the people that are taking it, I don't know if it'll stay on the wall or not. But anyways, So that's kind of what we've done in a nutshell. I could talk for hours and hours about it. It's been far more than I ever imagined it would be. And here we are 10 years later, still going strong.
Wow, amazing. Wow, that's so great, you guys. What a vibrant town, and it's so interesting to see how all of your work seems to touch upon each other as you went through the talks. I was curious, a lot of towns they have plans and the story is they write the plan and it goes on the shelf, but it feels very much like you're very collaboratively active in the planning processes and then in enlivening and making these things happen together. And perhaps this placemaking mayor had something to do with how you all are working well together. And I was curious if you could just let us know a little bit more about the synergy that's going on.
So
I can maybe speak. I know a lot of us work together outside of this too. Like before getting in this meeting, I didn't realize that I was like, oh, and Susan's there. Good, I know her. And I'm like, oh, and the community gardens, I'm familiar with that. So I think we all try to reach out to each other before at least myself, I try to reach out before starting an event to see if anybody else is already in progress in a direction. I'm not sure about the previous mayor. I'll let Martin speak to that.
Well, indeed, we have a lot to thank our previous administration with. The vision for a lot of what you've seen came. The plans, like you said, Ryan, were in place long before he came, and he dusted them off and revitalized them and started the ball rolling. And I joked when he decided to move on to the Secretary of Housing and Community Development for the state of Maryland that at his farewell gathering, I said, there won't need to be anything that's the Jake Day Memorial or the Jake Day anything, because you just have to look around town, and his hand was a part of all of this stuff that we're doing, and we're deeply indebted to him and his vision. And it wasn't him alone. He put the people in place to make it happen. And in the 25 years that I've been here, Salisbury is a very different place, and it ain't going back.
I see Ethan Kent from Placemaking X has come on and maybe has something to say.
Hi everyone. Yeah, just so inspiring. Thanks so much for sharing these great examples. But yeah, as Ryan said, what's wonderful is how they all fit together, how they all are so many key pieces of great placemaking, and together we've into a story. And then of course how when you see great places like this, there's amazing people behind it, and lots of people supporting them, and leadership on all scales. And we sort of increasingly look at what is the culture of governance, informal and formal, within cities as sort of the biggest limiting factor and opportunity for good placemaking. So how people collaborate, and how leadership can come from all skills. And it kind of actually needs to, it sounds like the sort of rhythm that you have, it needs to sort of move up and down. And placemaking can start from the grassroots, it can start from a mayor, but it's really looking holistically at how you're always, no matter where it's coming from, how are you always building capacity and collaboration and breaking down silos between these projects. So it's it sounds like you're at a fertile moment, to have a sort of more networked leadership approach, which is really what what Ryan and I are sort of working on around the world, is creating these sort of networks for collective learning, advocacy, and action, where we recognize that most of the skills are usually in the community, but they need to be highlighted, appreciated locally and regionally and globally. And so we have this Placemaking US network, and then we're trying to highlight cities that are really leading on this, and how do we learn from them, like you all. And then we also want to connect them globally. So there's people, many of you are now leaders on placemaking in urban agriculture and public art, and and transportation, and how do we we're happy to sort of connect you with leaders on these topics, nationally and globally, that, to really advance those agendas as well and support other communities on their efforts. So really excited to be connected to you. And actually, as I put in the chat, I'm actually going to be in, my family's taking a vacation down to Eastern Virginia. So we're going to be passing through Salisbury a couple times later in April. So I'm excited to try to see if I can convince my family to stop for a while, see some of these places in person, and maybe get to see some of you as well. But I'm excited to see all of it. And the new square looks really cool too. So and I know CJ, who is on this call, is a great has great insight in how to manage squares like that. He manages a square we've worked on with him in Portland, Maine. So he'd be a great resource for thinking about how do you now program and manage the space really well and have it reflect and build the placemaking community for the whole city. So that seems like an opportunity to bring together all of these skills and showcase what everyone loves about the city and the neighborhoods in the center of the city. But, I'll stop there. Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah, I just
Ethan.
had.
Oh, go ahead, Edwin.
Yeah, that would be great if you, Ethan, and Ryan visit, most definitely. We would love that. I was just gonna mention, yeah, I think Jake Day has been a huge support for developing the city. I saw him speak once and present about to really revitalize the city. It starts at the downtown. The interesting thing about Salisbury is that downtown is kind of the area that doesn't have much traffic still today. I believe that the administration before him, the mayor before him, was not exactly having the best policies for it having a better image. So there's been kind of a perception of crime for downtown. And I believe a lot of Salisburyans still have that perception of downtown being kind of a no-go area. So we have these certain monthly events. We have certain events that are sort of here and there. Unity Square will be interesting because we'll see how much that actually changes things for people to go to a square on a regular basis. Something I value for public spaces, the concept of first having the idea, then people, and then buildings. The Main Street was revitalized, and we didn't exactly get people out of that as much as I think there could have been. So yeah, I think that would be kind of an interesting thing to speak about, is what are still the issues with downtown? Is it still the perception? Is it that there's the city highways nearby so that there isn't good connectivity to it? That's something I just want to throw out there.
And it sounded like in the storytelling that the revitalization of downtown in part came about because of the First Fridays event. Is that sort of the narrative, or?
I think there probably was a lot of pieces, but I think Third Friday was a very successful event that kicked off some stuff. But we do have a lot of programming. Right now we have like main core events and events that reoccur monthly. And then we also have community supported events like Pride or Haitian Flag Day, which are supported by outside people who then we close down the roadways for them and we provide access. So programming, we do have a lot of events, almost 2 per weekend, every weekend, all the way through fall. But it's mostly like the daytime, weekday. It's a very office heavy downtown area with a lot of law offices and courthouses and things of that nature. So there's not always as many people walking around on the daily, I think. Was that the question?
Well, Susan, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that it had been going, a lot of people have been working on it long before the events started. But the history made it difficult because the emphasis on automobiles across the United States in the 60s, 50s, and the creation of all these highways, it did away with the idea that you could access downtown easily. You could walk around, and it's Salisbury's flat. It's not, there are no hills around here, so it's really great for bicycles, but it's still not that safe to walk and to bike around. I think we're getting there, but it's something that's been it's really hard to reverse these things. I mean, you're not going to change the fact those highways are right through the town. And I really appreciate the placemaking initiative, because I know this didn't happen just in Salisbury. This happened to a lot of places. And so other cities and towns that have tried different ideas, and there's some really creative things, like I've seen in places where they just block the highway for one evening and have a big potluck for the city. Kind of people come and there are tables out and things like that. So I know that there's a lot going on in other places that address these issues, and I also wanted to emphasize partnership, how important that is, and how it really is our way forward, because we're a small town and a lot of us kind of work in our own little universe, and we can't get a lot done on our own, but together we can get a lot done. And I've seen it, right, Martin? I mean, in the years that we've been here, huge changes, and it's really gratifying to see these things come to fruition after so long.
Nate Storing, who's here from Project for Public Spaces, brought up that PPS has an upcoming webinar on revitalizing downtowns, with some leading downtown business districts doing some of the talking. So that might be fun for you guys to check out as well.
Great. Yeah, so what I would like to add to this, I think that it's kind of like, hasn't been mentioned yet. So the city itself also had a big infrastructure development campaign where they wrote different grants, and I can also speak to that. But our downtown has a huge area that is just sealed paved surface for parking lots. And a couple of years ago, the city said, well, if we build a parking lot, we can take away some of these useless parking spaces and actually create something like the Unity Square, or even put new housing downtown. So there are a couple projects going on that will also increase the population, within a small radius around our downtown. And back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we saw urban sprawl and suburbia growing and people leaving the downtown. But in the last couple of years, we have seen a resurgence of people liking to live in city centers. And I think what everybody who's here today brings together, and what connects us all, is we all have main interests and side interests. And by making the downtown more accessible through bicycle path, slower car traffic, then architectural acupuncture, setting art and gathering spaces. Ultimately, we're all hoping that this is creating the draw for the community to live downtown, and just be the city that we're all striving and wanting to be.
Nate brought up in the chat that there's a gap in downtowns between having occasional events and daily programming and activation, and we didn't see a lot of things like movable chairs or tactical urbanism in the presentation. So I was curious if you guys could speak to what kind of elements or outdoor dining or things like that are going on.
I can maybe speak to that. There's some areas of outdoor dining downtown, some restaurants that have it. It seems like a lot of them are um attached, like fenced in attached areas for a lot of outdoor dining in our area. Like around here, we have the Riverwalks game park that has seating chairs and picnic benches, but to be honest, I think people break them about weekly, the chairs and stuff. So we try to provide seating and benching and stuff, and we have a little hard time with the resilience factor. Any suggestions for that? Go metal, go more heavy duty, or
Hi, this is Caroline. Hi,
Okay.
Nadine.
thanks. Hi, thank you.
Hi, you're doing awesome. I do want to say that when Main Street and Division Street were redone, they, deliberately put those bump outs to invite businesses, restaurants, and whatnot to use that space to bring their customers outdoors as well. I think finding fun ways to get the Downtown Salisbury Business Alliance to use those would be great in the future. And even with public art, finding ways for unique seating in those areas. I know that in Unity Square, that will definitely, I loved how Will White described it as the city's living room, rather than just, and I think with the seating and the use of that, we'll see that. But, we have, to touch on some of the things that I think Ryan mentioned. We have had issues with our seating, and Nadine touched on, some destruction of property, and then having to factor in how do we create seating that is inviting but that can maintain rough use. And then you even had the ice cream shop that had rocking chairs outside, and decided recently to remove them because of how they were being used, or if there were some arguments possibly around the folks that were sitting there. But I think there's something that we can do to bring more people outside, so that when we look at our downtown, especially our plaza area, it starts to resemble those black and white photos that Susan showed, where it is more bustling, and it's getting people to change their perception of what downtown is. And I think we're on the way, but it's definitely not an overnight thing.
And one of those perceptions that Caroline's referring to, or if she's not, she should be, is the whole parking deal. We have lots of available parking downtown, but people with old guard thinks that because we've utilized parking lots to build buildings and public space like Unity Square, I mean, that took a great parking spot that was 2 hours free and everybody's all up in arms, but there's hundreds of spaces just across the street in a garage covered. And this perception that it's not available is still haunting us, and probably will for a while until we just keep moving forward.
Absolutely. And I think Nadine touched on that as well when she talked about when Lee Whaley and Tommy Strott were creating Urban Salisbury, and how people, and I read some of the comments, and I know some of the people that were like, this is a ridiculous idea, and and we, everything we do, I think there was I think on Isabella Street, there was, when changes were made. Change is hard in our area, and we just got to push through, know that we're doing good things, and then, people will be upset about a different change, I guess. But I really love Will White's, the bike lanes are such a thing here, where people just, I don't know why they're so obsessed with them, but we're stopping deaths, we're stopping fatalities. And I love that image of Carroll Street, because for me, it makes so much more sense of the white outlines that are currently there, because I wasn't fully understanding that. And to see how that will look in its final phase is awesome. But change is hard, I guess.
Mm.
It is. And Lee is with us this morning if she wants to talk. I'll call her out.
Lee,
Take a bow.
She may have stepped away, but I saw Lee was there. I saw Connie was on there also.
I didn't see Connie, but Lee's still with us.
well, it seems like Will White is a real asset, and the work that you guys are getting done to restore your, urban mobility is going to be a real key for the next generation. So the more we can root him on and get him funded and to do this work, it looks like it's really big part of the panacea. And going back to the chairs, the broken chairs, Nate suggested, counting how many get broken and having a budget to repair them, having storage for them at night, and also, big proponent of eyes on the street. If there's chairs out there, maybe there should be a mobile food business adjacent so that there's a little bit of a managerial layer. Or in my downtown, we would bring out the chairs and take them in, in sort of active times and manage them really more actively so that they were used properly, and then they were taken away when they didn't need to be used. But definitely looking at those patterns of use, and the people who come out to public meetings are usually coming out to complain about something, or they don't want to see anything change. Whereas talking to people who are out and about and using the space and seeing what can make it better is a better place to find that energy. And I love what Martin, maybe you should go downtown, because it seems like you have the magic touch to create a crowd wherever you go by doing some sort of activities that people can get engaged in. Well,
There actually is a very small community garden sandwiched between downtown and the waterfront that's being utilized once in a while.
And I was a part of the planning, and that's a part of a larger thing. Once the Carroll Street Riverwalk area gets developed, I hope it's still in the process to become an edible riverwalk. That was the anchor point of that whole larger structure. But since then, Jake has gone on to the state, a new mayor's come in, there's lots of pushback against some of these projects. So I don't know where that'll shake out.
well, one super talent that it looked like you guys had that was demonstrated was the way that you did smaller projects that then turned into much bigger things. Nadine showed up at First Fridays and became the First Fridays coordinator, and Martin, you planning that garden turned into that community center. So I would keep making those small investments today so that when there's maybe a more political clout for this work, that those seeds have been planted and the big stuff can happen just a little bit further down the line.
Thank you for the encouragement, Ryan.
Our pleasure. Thank you guys so much for opening up your town to us and showing us what's going on. I think you generated a lot of excitement and interest, and everyone who came on today is going to get this emailed to them, and hopefully this can be part of a bigger conversation and connecting. And one last question I had for you guys was, how do you benchmark yourselves against other towns? It seems like you're doing a lot of amazing stuff. Or who do you get inspired by, or how are you checking with? Is it from your travels? Is there a town up the road that really inspires you? Or where do you get some of these ideas and inspiration from?
I think there's multiple places. When I've traveled, I kind of go town because I'm not familiar with where the stuff is. And I've seen a lot of really cool out west in Colorado and in Utah and stuff that were just really interesting. And yeah, I think there's a lot of inspirational towns near us. We live near beaches, we live near waterways, we live near country. So it's like everybody around us is doing stuff too. And really the question is how to do something different in an area that's doing so much.
Yeah, I think for the green team, it is that all people that are volunteering are already in one way or the other active in like environmental protection and improvement. So every backyard and saying, what can I do better? You know, how can I get people to take responsibility for, you know, the trash that they create, not throwing it out? How can we make it easy for people to do better by, you know, setting policy suggestions for the city to go in the right direction? And it's really like a long-term approach, 20, 30 years into the future, you know, considering climatic changes and how that affects everybody here. I mean, the Lower Eastern Shore is really only a couple feet above sea level. So we have to think in those terms because otherwise we're all going to be beachfront property sometime. So, you know, with Jake creating the green team, I think it was just the right platform at the right time for people that already were active to get together and then channel those interests into making a bigger impact, like you said earlier, Ryan. So we're hoping to continue.
Yeah,
Well,
I've got to
fantastic.
say, I've got to say two towns that come to my mind. Of course, I will say Santa Cruz, California, where I'm from, but especially two towns I would say are Burlington, Vermont, and Northampton, Massachusetts. Because Burlington is just, they have like the waterfront bike trail there, and everything's just so connected. It's connected to downtown, it's connected to one part of the city and another part of the city to a whole beach area along the Lake Champlain. It's connected to cafes and restaurants, etc. And Northampton has Look Park, which is right in downtown. And there again, you have cafes and restaurants right around it. So something I was going to mention too is not just downtown in Salisbury. The city park could be better connected downtown, and it could have a cafe or a restaurant because there's a zoo, and the zoo could just open a little cafe or somewhere in the city park too. There are great amenities. But I think, yeah, I really like the idea of like a mobile food truck in downtown and something like that in the city park too. So that's what I just wanted to mention.
Great. Well, it sounds really interesting. It sounds like the next step is Ethan is coming to town for a big visit. And then we'll actually be having a placemaking weekend in Philadelphia in the end of May, which might be an interesting place to look at. It's one of the most active urban public spaces, a series of public spaces, the waterfront, the squares, the rail park. So that'd be exciting to see you guys at. And then also PPS has the big placemaking week in Baltimore, where I think that the group even that helped with the Unity Square is involved in that. So it sounds like there's a lot to interact on. And thank you guys again so much for sharing all this information with us. And we're excited to know you a little bit better and to have this information out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank everyone.
Thanks, Edwin,
Yo.
for putting it together.
Yes, thank you, Edwin.
Congrats everyone on great work. Hope to connect further at some point. I reached out to a bunch of you on LinkedIn, but you know, hope to connect other ways too.
All right, cool.
I'll put my email in the chat too.
Yeah, reach out while you're in town. There's plenty of events that weekend. That's our big kickoff weekend. So there's every
Oh,
day
cool.
an event,
Yeah.
it looks like.